In recent months, airports across the United States have witnessed an unmistakable rise in ICE activity. Deportation flights are now taking off faster than at any point in the past 2 years, part of what officials are calling a nationwide enforcement surge. According to federal data, ICE has already carried out more than 7,400 deportation flights this year, a 34% jump compared to last year. In the last few days alone, reports suggest that around 1,200 people may have been deported as part of these intensified operations. In states like California, removals have soared by over 78%, as ICE teams coordinate with local and federal partners to target individuals with criminal convictions or final removal orders. Just last month, a week-long operation led to the arrest of over 400 individuals nationwide, marking one of the largest coordinated efforts in recent history. Behind the scenes, ICE air operations are running nearly 45 flights a day, transporting detainees from detention centers to international destinations under strict federal oversight. Officials say the mission is about enforcing lawful removal orders and maintaining border integrity. But critics argue the speed and scope of this surge raise serious humanitarian questions. So what's driving this new phase of deportations, and how far will it go? Let's take a closer look at what's happening as ICE expands its flight operations nationwide. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the latest updates. Let's dive in. Officials say this nationwide escalation is being driven by a combination of factors: rising border encounters, a growing backlog of pending deportation orders, and a renewed emphasis on coordination between ICE and local law enforcement agencies. Over the past several months, DHS has directed more resources toward removal operations, citing the need to enforce final court rulings and relieve pressure on overcrowded detention facilities. According to ICE, many of these operations are now being conducted jointly with state and local authorities to ensure accurate identification and proper legal processing of individuals targeted for removal. A large portion of the cases involve those with prior criminal convictions or unresolved immigration violations. The agency maintains that each deportation follows due process, with oversight from immigration courts and federal guidelines to ensure lawful conduct. In a recent press briefing, DHS officials reiterated that public safety and national security remain top priorities. They emphasized that the agency's focus is not on mass detentions, but on individuals who have repeatedly violated immigration laws or pose a risk to communities. ICE also noted that flight operations are monitored to ensure safe and humane transport for all individuals on board. However, immigration advocacy groups and legal organizations view the surge differently. They argue that the rapid pace of deportations could limit access to legal representation, especially for detainees moved across state lines before their appeals are fully processed. Some advocacy networks have raised concerns that the expansion of ICE air operations might lead to confusion, rushed procedures, or inadequate communication with families of those being deported. Critics also point to the political timing, with immigration once again becoming a dominant national issue, suggesting that tougher enforcement measures may be intended to demonstrate control amid growing pressure over border management. Supporters, on the other hand, argue that the current surge is long overdue, describing it as a necessary step to uphold federal law and restore public confidence in the immigration system. This growing divide between enforcement goals and humanitarian concerns now sits at the very heart of America's immigration debate. As deportation flights increase and operations expand, the question remains, can the government balance lawful enforcement with compassion, or will the system tip further toward aggressive removal policies? Recent ICE operations illustrate just how coordinated and extensive these enforcement efforts have become. In late September 2025, a week-long campaign across Florida resulted in over 400 arrests, focusing on individuals with prior criminal convictions or final removal orders. At the same time, in Chicago, federal agents conducted a high-profile raid on a South Shore apartment building, arresting 37 people in the early hours of the morning. Residents reported a heavy law enforcement presence, with tactical gear and aerial units observed during the operation. DHS and ICE officials emphasized that many of those arrested had ties to gang activity, or prior deportation orders, but advocacy groups highlighted that some cases remain under review and stressed the importance of legal representation. Elsewhere, in Texas and Wisconsin, ICE conducted multi-day operations targeting undocumented individuals with criminal histories and repeated immigration violations. For example, 28 people were arrested during Operation Pickoff in the Harlingen and Laredo offices, while 24 individuals were taken into custody in Wisconsin for offenses including DUI, identity theft, and hit and run, many connected to larger criminal investigations. These nationwide operations demonstrate a clear shift towards simultaneous, high-intensity enforcement across multiple states. The scale and speed of these raids, combined with the use of ICE air operations to move detainees between facilities and international destinations, have raised both logistical and humanitarian questions. While ICE stresses public safety and adherence to legal procedures, critics argue that the accelerated pace may challenge due process and access to legal counsel, fueling the ongoing debate over how enforcement and human rights can coexist in the U.S. immigration system. In 2025, ICE deportation operations have surged to unprecedented levels. As of August, the agency conducted at least 1,393 enforcement flights, averaging about 45 flights per day, marking the highest monthly total since tracking began in 2020. Year-to-date, ICE has carried out over 7,450 flights, a 34% increase compared to the same period in 2024, with 240 international deportation flights in August alone, primarily to Mexico. Operations are coordinated from 12 major hubs across Arizona, Texas, Louisiana, and Florida, utilizing a mix of chartered aircraft, Air Force cargo planes, and airline carriers for international transfers. These flights transport detainees based on court-mandated removal orders, with planning that considers security classification, medical needs, and timing. Notably, ICE has arranged deportations of approximately 400 Iranian immigrants, with 120 scheduled to depart via Qatar this week, and has conducted transfers to countries including Rwanda, Eswatini, South Sudan, Uzbekistan, El Salvador, Panama, and Costa Rica. States such as California, Texas, and Florida are seeing the highest activity, with California alone reporting a 78% increase in deportations during the first 7 months of 2025, totaling around 5,500 individuals removed, including 1,500 non-criminal deportations. These operations are closely coordinated with local and federal law enforcement to manage airport security, ground transportation, and adherence to federal guidelines, while advocacy groups continue to raise concerns about potential limitations on access to legal representation during this rapid surge. Behind the surge in deportations is the highly coordinated and complex network of ICE air operations, responsible for safely transporting detainees from detention centers to airports and onward to international destinations. Each day, flights are meticulously planned, taking into account security classifications, medical requirements, and logistical efficiency, with detainees assigned based on court-mandated removal orders. ICE utilizes a combination of chartered aircraft, larger jets for international flights, and occasionally military cargo planes, ensuring that both short-distance and long-haul transfers are handled securely. On board, detainees are closely monitored by trained ICE officers, who follow strict protocols to address any medical or behavioral incidents, while detainees are permitted a limited amount of personal belongings in accordance with federal regulations. The operation extends beyond the air, involving seamless coordination with local and federal law enforcement for airport security, ground transportation, and smooth transfers to and from detention facilities. Multiple hubs across Arizona, Texas, Louisiana, and Florida serve as staging points, enabling simultaneous flights across states and international borders. Advanced scheduling and tracking systems allow ICE to manage dozens of daily flights efficiently, maintain compliance with federal guidelines, and ensure detainees are transported safely and lawfully. While ICE emphasizes that every removal follows due process and legal oversight, advocacy groups continue to highlight concerns about rapid transfers potentially limiting access to legal counsel, especially for those moved across states before their appeals are fully processed. Under the Trump administration, immigration enforcement has consistently focused on strict adherence to federal removal orders and the prioritization of individuals deemed threats to public safety or national security. The administration relied on existing authorities, including expedited removal, which allows certain undocumented immigrants to be deported without a full court hearing under specific legal circumstances, and 287G agreements, which enabled trained local law enforcement officers to assist federal immigration authorities. To support these efforts, ICE received federal funding to expand detention facilities, hire additional officers, and enhance operational capabilities, including the coordination of daily deportation flights through ICE air operations. In practice, these policies have led to targeted enforcement actions across multiple states, focusing primarily on individuals with prior criminal convictions, outstanding removal orders, or repeated immigration violations. While ICE emphasizes that all operations follow legal procedures and aim to protect public safety, immigration advocacy groups have raised concerns about due process, access to legal representation, and the treatment of individuals in detention. Overall, the administration's enforcement approach represents a concerted effort to uphold federal immigration laws, while ongoing debates continue over the balance between lawful enforcement, civil liberties, and humanitarian considerations. In response to the Trump administration's aggressive immigration enforcement policies in 2025, Democratic leaders and lawmakers have pursued a multi-pronged strategy aimed at safeguarding immigrant communities and ensuring due process. This approach combines legal challenges, legislative initiatives, and organized community efforts. Several states, including Illinois and Massachusetts, filed lawsuits challenging federal actions, such as the deployment of National Guard troops to cities and the withholding of Homeland Security funding, arguing that these measures were unlawful, politically motivated, and posed risks to local communities. At the same time, Democratic lawmakers at both the state and federal levels introduced legislation designed to increase transparency in ICE operations, restrict enforcement in sensitive locations such as schools, hospitals, and universities, and protect residents from undue federal intervention. Community organizations have been particularly active, hosting workshops and training sessions to prepare residents for potential ICE operations or federal troop deployments. These trainings often emphasize legal rights, non-cooperation tactics, and strategies to maintain personal and community safety. Public opinion among Democrats supports these efforts, with surveys indicating that a majority believe local and state governments are justified in resisting certain federal deportation actions. Collectively, these responses illustrate a coordinated effort to protect immigrant rights, ensure access to legal representation, and maintain local autonomy, serving as a counterbalance to the administration's intensified enforcement initiatives and highlighting the ongoing tension between federal authority and community protections. In 2025, widespread protests erupted across the United States in response to aggressive immigration enforcement and mass deportations, reflecting deep public concern over the rapid expansion of federal removal operations. These demonstrations were organized by a wide array of immigrant rights groups, local community organizations, advocacy networks, and grassroots activists, all aiming to raise awareness about the impact of deportations on families, communities, and individuals with long-standing ties to the country. Major cities such as Chicago, Los Angeles, Portland, and St. Louis became focal points for these actions, with thousands of participants taking to the streets to voice their opposition. Protesters staged marches, rallies, vigils, and sit-ins, often gathering near ICE facilities, courthouses, and neighborhoods directly affected by enforcement operations, highlighting concerns about due process, family separations, and the humane treatment of detainees. In Chicago, crowds formed outside detention centers and surrounding communities, emphasizing solidarity with those at risk of deportation, while in Portland, Oregon, activists directly challenged federal troop deployments and coordinated ICE raids, drawing attention to the scale and intensity of the enforcement measures. Nationwide, over 700 immigration-related demonstrations were recorded, a marked increase compared to previous years, indicating growing mobilization and public engagement on immigration issues. These protests not only served as a platform to demand accountability and transparency from federal agencies, but also sought to educate communities about legal rights, provide resources for affected families, and foster collaboration among advocacy groups. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.